Hi, my name's Nick, and this is my review of Star Wars The Force Awakens, Episode 7. And I'll just tell you at the start, I love this movie. If you're one of the angry Star Wars fans who's hated the Disney movies, this is aimed at you. This is directed completely at that segment of the fan base as a refutation of everything you believe. Because these movies are fantastic. They are good Star Wars, and it's sad that you can't appreciate them. I will attempt to explain why they are great, or why I think so anyway. At the beginning, Max von Sydow's character tells Poe this will begin to make things right, and he is so right. I don't feel the prequels need to be apologized for, but a lot of people do. So that's what that is addressed to. And what it mostly refers to is the tone of Star Wars. The prequels are much slower plotting. They weren't as fast-paced action movies, and these really are. They're faster paced. They're more exciting. That's what really gets fixed here is the tone of Star Wars. J.J. Abrams is a master of the mystery box, and if you don't like that style of filmmaking, that's fine. But there's so many great mysteries in this movie. Now that we know everything, it's kind of hard to remember what it was like when you were seeing it for the first time, and we didn't know who the Jedi was going to be, if there was going to be one, who Kylo Ren was under the mask, what his parentage was. Any of it. There's so many great mysteries that get unraveled through the course of this movie. And, once you know everything, the effect is kind of lost. But I don't think so, really. Now that Rise of Skywalker is out, we have a new perspective. I'll try not to get into any spoilers. I may have to, just for some purposes, but I'll warn you before I do. Right away, we see Kylo Ren displaying new Force powers. This movie is criticized most for being a rehash of A New Hope, and it does follow several of the same plot beats in a very general sense, but it's always giving us new things from Star Wars. And the first thing is this new and radically more powerful use of the Force. He holds a blaster bolt in midair, freezing Poe's entire body, and it's terrifying. You know? We get a hint as to who he is when the Max von Sydow says, you didn't arise from the dark side, you can't deny the truth of your family. And we'll find out later that, when Kylo says you're so right, he's referring to Darth Vader being his grandfather. And it's a complicated family, the Skywalkers. But, we see Finn having his crisis of conscience as a stormtrooper. This is also something brand new from Star Wars. There's way more new in this movie than there is rehashed from any other movie. And there's a great scene transition from Finn's stormtrooper helmet into Rey's scavenger mask. The next point of contention people have is that they hate Rey's character. They say she doesn't have a character, that she's bland. You could not be more wrong, and I don't want to pull the misogyny card. I really don't. I've listened to Star Wars criticism for the past, several years, and, I've watched every video that Mahler has put out about this, and I've left rafts of essays in his comments section. I challenged him to debate me, but he refused, which I understand. He's a busy guy. But I'm hoping he might reconsider after I've made this series and I've gotten my thoughts out there. Because I believe that I could at least engage him in a proper artistic film debate and discussion about it. And I do consider him the forefront of intelligent and valid Star Wars criticism. He's built his channel on Star Wars criticism. I think it's only fair that he defend his viewpoint once in a while. And not just live in his little echo chamber. So I also think it's really neat how there's this energy-free hovering technology. Star Wars technology is so far ahead of ours. Rey turns off her bike's engine and it still just hovers there. This is seen all throughout the movies and just a cool thing I wanted to point out. But Rey's character is very deep, and it's not maybe the most complex, but she's so emotive. She's such a great actress, and she's always showing such deep emotion. Her reactions to everything are the emotional core of this film, of the whole trilogy, really. And the first time we meet her, we get to see what a shitty life she has. This is why I don't begrudge her being good at things and having good things happen to her, because I feel bad for her right from the start. She represents a class we've never really seen before, the dirt poor of Star Wars. She's not a slave per se, but she's at such a low level that she has no hope of buying a starship and getting off planet or doing anything with her life except becoming the old woman she sees cleaning scrap parts across from her. So I don't know why people hate Rey so much. I really don't. I love the actress, I love the character, and even though she's had this incredibly difficult life with no hope in it, it has not dulled her nobility at all. She has such a noble heart. She's such a good person. And maybe that's why people don't like her. They think that it's stupid to be a good person. I don't know. It seems really cynical to me. But I love BB-8 as well. He's our new R2-D2. And it kind of sucks that R2 doesn't get much to do in this trilogy, but he's all over the other 6 movies. There's maybe too much R2. The case could be made. So, and we've got a new character who's like a young and energetic new R2-D2. So just accept BB-8. He's adorable and fun, and maybe not as bitchy and sarcastic as R2 comes off at times. But we don't get to hear as much of his dialogue as he doesn't have a C-3PO counterpart telling us basically what he says. So then the next new force power we get is from the Kylo telepathy scene, force telepathy. This is like Jedi mind trick turned up to 1,000,000. And this is, you don't see Sith too often use the powers they learned as a Jedi, but newly christened as a Sith. And that's exactly what this is. I'm sure he learned mind trick from Luke and has use Snoke's teachings to take it that much further into full-blown telepathy. Yeah, I talked about Rey's, and then we get to see another instance of Rey's nobility. Not only does she save BB-8 and let him come with her, but when the offer is made to her to, she's been bringing in scrap parts that she has to work all day for and get just enough food to survive on, and the guy she works for offers her this massive amount of food, in exchange for this droid that she just found, and she's tempted to take it at first because how could she not? How could she not be? She could probably sell that much and get, enough to do something with it, but she immediately catches herself and doesn't. She is too noble, and she doesn't even know it has anything important to the Resistance at this point. This is just because she knows it's the right thing to do. There's no other, there's no law out here in the Outer Rim. There's no law on this planet that's going to say, hey, you sold a stolen droid. There's no other reason other than she's a good person at heart and does the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And I'm a huge fan of Superman and comic books. I still believe in that kind of altruism. And I think it's really cynical if you don't. But so she does not sell the droid. She resists the temptation. And then immediately we see that Finn is rescuing Poe, and Poe asks him, why are you doing this? Why are you helping me get away? And Finn says, because it's the right thing to do. And it's immediately made into a joke. And he says, you need a pilot. Yeah, I need a pilot. So nobody else in the galaxy, very few people feel this way. Rey is very special and unique because of her nobility and her goodness. And that's why I believe she is empowered by the Force. If you've seen Rise of Skywalker, that I think I'm proven right by that. I have a whole video on why Rey is not a Mary Sue, and my theory isn't exactly correct, but it's generally correct. That the Force is empowering her on purpose. The past Jedi are empowering her on purpose. It's not that she's just good at everything, because Kathleen Kennedy wanted a woman to be at the forefront of Star Wars. This is why the misogyny bullshit pisses me off so much. We have exactly one new female protagonist. How many other heroes are male? Finn, Poe, Chewie, Han. Every other hero is male, and you can't handle one female protagonist? Come on, guys. Let the girls play too. It's only fair. I mean, my God. It really pisses me off when people bag on Rey because they think Kathleen Kennedy has a political agenda she's pushing. This is more evident in Last Jedi. I'll admit there is some SJW nonsense in that movie, but I don't think it hurts it. There's 5 to 15% maybe of lines and screen time devoted to it. It doesn't ruin the movie, but we'll get to that one in the next review. So, during the escape, Poe and Finn crash on Jakku, and this is where Poe was meant to die. Like, the character was written to die off at this point, but the character, Isaac, whatever, I forget his name, went to JJ and went to the director and said, look, I'm just asking here, but I've died early on in the last 4 movies that I've been in. Could I please not die early in this one too? And they said, okay, fine, we can find something else for you to do later. And that's why Poe is kind of an X factor. He doesn't really fit in too well in the rest of the story, because he is just kind of brought along. But we get some amazing flight sequences out of it. I don't feel I need to defend the space action, because everyone agrees that's very good. Everyone agrees these movies are visually stunning, and the space battles and the way they're shot, that's all very good. That's not people's problem with these movies. You know, everyone kind of grudgingly admits that that part is good. But during Ray and Finn meet, and we immediately see how good Ray is at combat. And growing up on this scrappy planet, you know, it makes total sense that she would be good with her staff and good enough to fight people off. You know, they have to run from the Empire. The First Order is attacking them with TIE fighters. They get into the Millennium Falcon, which I think everyone is glad to see the Falcon come back. Um, and Rey is able to fly them out of it with some amazing piloting skills. Afterward, Finn asks her, "How did you do that?" And she says, "I don't know." This is our first instance of the Force helping Rey do these various things. This is basically why she's not a Mary Sue, because everything she does is Force assisted, except her combat skills, I think. Those are her own. But her flying, all of her Force powers, this is the Force helping her along with everything, because the story needs her to, because the universe, the galaxy, needs a light side champion. And there's no one better. She has the heart for it, and so, you know, that's why. That's why she's given this power. But Kylo's rage is something new we've never seen before from a Sith. We've seen them, you know, get angry in a cool sense, completely ruled by his emotion, and they're just out of control. And it makes him even more terrifying, I think, as a villain. Then we finally get to meet Han Solo. He shows up, and Harrison Ford has still got it. It's like it was yesterday for him. He's still such a great character. Han brings so much fun and charisma and humor to this movie. There's a fun little rolling boulder gag where the Rathtar is chasing him down the hallway. If you haven't seen the Indiana Jones movies, that's a reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark. But I think everyone knows that from popular culture anyway. And here we finally find out who Kylo's parents are when Snoke is talking to him and refers to Han and says the droid is with Han Solo, your father. And like, oh shit, that's who Kylo is. He's the child of Leia and Han. And it all fits together very well. We find out the backstory leading up to this movie as conversations is part of the movie. You know, Han tells us where Luke went, why he stopped being a Jedi. You know, and I'll get to more of that in the Last Jedi review. But for now, all you have to know is that Rey is just amazed by this. She's always thought this was mythological. You know, I think the Empire tried to bury the knowledge of the Jedi, and to a large extent that worked. And that's why she thinks Luke Skywalker was a myth. Because really, Luke Skywalker, all the things he did were in very localized environments. Maybe the news didn't get around that much, except as legends told to other people. It's not like there's a galaxy-wide news network telling people what happened. You know, maybe there is. I don't know. They don't cover it in the movies. Then we see Maz's cantina, and we have not. It's like the original cantina scene times 100. There's so many great alien designs, so many creatures. You know, it really carries the spirit of the original Star Wars, that intense weirdness of a galaxy that we're only seeing the barest sliver of, but there's so much more going on. So many other races and species. Finn finally comes clean to Rey about not being part of the Resistance, about being a stormtrooper, and Rey goes downstairs and gets her the lightsaber, and she awakens. This is more of Rey. Her emotions are the core of the movie, and she's just begging Finn to come along and be a good guy with her, but he is still too afraid. He's terrified of the First Order. And this really gets across how terrifying the First Order is. You know, but Rey has her visions, which, you know, don't really tell us much, except that she's part of the larger Force narrative. Because we get shots of Bespin, we get shots of Kylo, we get her little vision of the future. But it's important that she sees Kylo here and is already terrified of him. I think it's probably the first time she's seen him. Then we get our first introduction to Starkiller Base, and if anyone didn't know, in the original draft of Star Wars, Luke's last name was Starkiller. That's where that came from. But it's also sort of a morphed over thing from the extended universe. In the Dark Empire trilogy, the comic books, which I hope to cover one day, the Emperor had something called the Galaxy Gun that used the Force itself as a weapon to destroy entire solar systems. And that's pretty much what Starkiller Base does. So that's morphed over from the extended universe. And she refuses to take the lightsaber, so Finn takes it. And this is the first time, something new again, we ever see a non-Force user use a lightsaber as a weapon. He's just using it like a sword, just swinging it and stabbing people, and it's a lot of fun. You know, we get another great space battle, an X-Wing shooting targets on the ground. Again, something we've never seen before. You know, these movies are packed with new things to Star Wars. How dare anyone say this is just a rehash of Episode 4? There's so much more going on here. Rey is so emotional in the forest scene where she's running away from Kylo Ren. She's just, her terror is palpable, you know. And if you don't feel for Rey, I can see how this can fall flat for you. I think you're emotionally dead inside if she doesn't connect with you on some level. But same for Han and Leia. It's so good to see Han and Leia back together again, and you see where their relationship went over all this time and why it fell apart, and that there's still a lot of love and affection there. You know, and we see Poe and Finn reunited, and they each thought the other was dead, and that's a fun friendship that we'll build on in the next two movies. I love all these new characters. They all, you know, they form a new core so that I'm okay with the legacy characters who I love taking a back seat, because this isn't their trilogy. That's the other big complaint about these movies, is the disrespect of the legacy characters, you know? But they had center stage in the last trilogy. They're not the focus here. They are mentors and torch passers, and they do what they're supposed to. Rey and Kylo have their first scene together where he's trying to interrogate her, and she gives as good as she gets. She resists his telepathy, which we feel probably no one else has ever been able to do by how shocked he is at it. And she's really angry at him. She tells him, "You're afraid you'll never be as strong as Darth Vader." And this cuts him to the core, because he is, for his own reasons, he is dedicated to being a Darksider. And this is exactly what he's afraid of. Because he talks earlier about not wanting to be seduced by the light side. He does have conflict in him. And it's interesting to see the light side as being the seductive one. We've only seen the dark side seducing lightsiders before. Again, something new for Star Wars. You know, there's still a lot of things that are similar to others, but all the movies are meant to echo all the others. That's intentional on Lucas's part. So they stayed very faithful to his intention in that respect. Yeah. Rey exhibits new force powers, the mind trick that she uses to escape from her captivity, which again is the Force, the Jedi telling her how to do this. Her use of the Force is instinctual from her perspective, but I think the Jedi Force ghosts are intentionally sending her this knowledge. She just doesn't know that's what's happening. So Rey and Finn and everyone, they make it back to, they make it back. Wait, I got all out of order. Leia and Han have a scene where Han knows he might die. Leia asks him, "If you see our son, bring him home." This is when they're leaving to go to Starkiller Base. I got out of order. Sorry. And you see on the look on Harrison's face that he knows he might die. He's going to make this attempt. He's going to do everything he can to get through to Kylo emotionally, but there's like a 90% chance he's going to die from it. But he's at a long and healthy life, and he's ready to give it up for this. This is more important than he is. This is what Leia wants. It's what he wants. And anyone who's a parent, you know you want everything for your child, and you're willing to sacrifice yourself to get it. You know, so I think it's a complex family dynamic, and that's, you know, also very true to Star Wars. But Rey uses the Force on instinct. Her heart is light side, so that's why her powers are light side, I think. You know, even though if you know where her bloodline comes from, you might think she has dark side powers in her. That's not what determines. That only determines your level of Force power, is how many midichlorians are in your system. And I know people don't like that, but it's canon, so that's how the Force works in this universe. And that's why she gets these light side powers like pull and Force, you know, mind trick, and the aiding of Starfighter ability. If you play Jedi Starfighter, you'll know how that works. Next thing I wanted to discuss was Han and Kylo's scene. There's really nothing else important that happens at Starkiller Base. There's a great, you know, assault with the space battle, but the emotional core of the movie is this scene where Han confronts Kylo Ren, and it is one of the best scenes in all of Star Wars. Honestly, I can't express enough how much I love it, how shocked I was watching it in the theater. You know, you're right there with everyone else watching Han die. He says to Kylo, you know, Snoke is using you for your power. Come away with me. Come back to the light side. And I think Kylo was really thinking about it. He is torn. He says, I'm being torn apart. I wish to be free of this pain. He just wants it resolved one way or the other. And he might have really intended to give Han his lightsaber when he holds it out to him. But then the light dies in the sun being sucked into the planet, and this symbolizes the end of hope. But as long as there's light, there's still hope, is what they said. And as soon as the light is gone, it's gone from his heart as well. And he tries to, like, turn the lightsaber, and Han resists a little bit. That's what he means when he says, will you help me, Father? And he helps him by resisting, by putting up any kind of resistance, trying to take the lightsaber. This gives Kylo the push he needs to push back and turn it on and just right through the chest. And this is the most heartbreaking thing. After he's already killed him, after Han knows that his son has just murdered him, he reaches up and strokes his face, telling him, I still love you. I forgive you. He doesn't blame Kylo for this. He knows it's Snoke's influence doing it. And he's, you know, there's nothing your child can do that you won't still love them. And that's what really connects us all to Star Wars. It is a movie about family. The entire saga is a movie about family. So we get to the lightsaber fight, which is Finn. Again, we've never seen someone without force powers trying to use a lightsaber, and he does pretty well. Han forgave him. Chewie is not so forgiving. He shoots Kylo in the gut with the bowcaster. The movie has spent so much time establishing how powerful the bowcaster is. You know, this is another thing the movie gets criticized for, is that Rey shouldn't have been able to beat Kylo, but he is severely depreciated in his ability, because he's basically got to fight one-handed, holding his guts in with the other, or using the Force to hold them in. And even Finn gets a hit on him. Finn hits him in the shoulder before Kylo takes him out. But then Rey fights, you know, she pulls the lightsaber into her hand, she fights him, and she's really fighting her fear, her terror still. She's fighting her fear more than she's fighting Kylo for the first part of this fight, until he's got her backed up against the cliff, and it's either a do or die time, and he makes her the offer, you know, you need a teacher, I can show you the ways of the Force. And that's when it hits her, oh yeah, the Force. You know, because she has to have realized by now that's what's been letting her do things like the mind trick and the Force pull. And so she centers herself, she feels the Force flowing through her, and the Force aids her in this part of the fight. It guides her movements, you know, that's like Obi-Wan said. Luke asks him, so it controls your movements, and Obi-Wan says partially, but it also obeys your commands. Well, here the Force is controlling her movements partially. It is helping her fight better with a lightsaber, even though she's had no training. That's the biggest complaint you hear about Rey, is she never had any training. Shut up. Shut up with your no training bullshit. That's the point. The Force is doing it. How can you miss that? My God. So she feels the Force and uses it and beats Kylo Ren, and this just pissed off so many male fans, and it is embarrassing. Some female fans too, and I'm not sure why. I don't understand that really. But then they fly back to the base. People complain that Leia doesn't hug Chewie. Leia hugs Rey, someone she's never met before. Well, Leia hugs Rey because she can see the devastation on her face and realizes she loved him too. She knows Han died because she felt it. And she sees it and knows they already had this bond before they've even met. And Chewie doesn't want a hug. Chewie wants to grieve alone. You know, we get a shot of Chewie later sitting by himself, just processing his feelings. You know, that's why Leia hugs Rey, because she needs it. And Chewie wants to grieve alone. In the final shot of the movie, Rey goes to find Luke, you know, after the map's put together. And her nonverbal acting from both of them is just, you could do a class on nonverbal acting from this scene. Her pleading face, and then her mastering that emotion and kind of coming back to center. And the look on Luke's face, looking at the lightsaber so gravely, like, you don't know what you're asking. She's asking, please come help, please train me, or please take this up and fight with us. And he's saying, you don't know what you're asking me. If I get involved, things might go horribly wrong again, like the last time I tried. You know, and that's my review of The Force Awakens. I love this movie. I think it might be the strongest single film out of the sequel trilogy, but I love the others as well. I feel like Last Jedi plays a lot better now that Rise of Skywalker is out, and I cannot, for the life of me, understand why Rise of Skywalker is getting bad reviews. So, I'll get to that when I get to it, but I really hope that people actually watch this section of reviews, because this is what the Star Wars fan base needs to hear. These are great Star Wars movies, and time will prove me right on this. But as for you, I hope you enjoyed watching, and I thank you for your time.